So, in my opinion, I believe the Lodge's leach field threatens potentially hundreds of wells. And how fast? How, in what direction? Where in particular? Over what time period? Nobody knows, because nobody's bothered to look. The Lodge's new disposal plan is effectively as bad, if not worse, than its original plan. They're not dumping it right in the river. They're putting it in a leach field on the river. Discharging 30,000 gallons per day of partially treated sewage into a 50 by 50-foot leach field is a very bad idea, as I try to point out, just on the water balance. Forget about the downstream wells. Forget about the underlying aquifer. That much water going into that size of a leach field collected from that many people is going to fail. And the question is it going to fail this year, next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? It's going to fail. Positioning that leach field in a riparian flood zone on alluvial soils that are only 8 to 12 feet above groundwater virtually ensures contamination of the adjacent creek and underlying aquifer. This is why you don't need to be a hydrogeologist to know this, but boy, it sure helps if you are. Doing so immediately upgradient of hundreds of drinking wells is not just reckless. It's utterly indifferent to the health, the safety, and the well-being of every downstream neighbor. They could care less. And it imposes on all of the downstream neighbors the unending burden and cost to protect themselves from the Lodge's indifference and greed. You're the ones that are going to have to test your wells, filter your wells, determine whether or not your aquifer is contaminated. And if you want to do anything about it, you're going to have to incur the cost to fix it or sue them to clean it up. And they will be long gone, if not bankrupt by then. So what this is all about, and we have a limited time to act, but we can act and we can stop this, is who bears the risk? What Bishop Lodge is trying to do is to offload the risk of any contamination, the uncertainty and cost of detecting it, and the ongoing burden of dealing with it to all of its downstream neighbors. That's why that leach field is at the downstream edge of its property. Doesn't affect its water outtake from the stream. It's not going to affect its wells. Its residents are all ensconced hundreds of feet in elevation above this. It's going to affect everybody downstream. Contamination may or may not be detected before it reaches our drinking wells and faucets. The fact that you put in a monitoring well here or a monitoring well there doesn't mean that you have detected the spread of the plume. And this, again, is why you need a hydrogeologist to explain to you how poor monitoring can be to capture the flow, especially in an area where you've got highly transmissive soils like this, and an awful lot of pumping going on from hundreds of wells. The cost of fixing any contamination after it gets into the leach field is going to be astronomical. Far more than the cost of changing course, putting the leach field somewhere else, or adopting an even far more environmentally sound solution. So I ask you, isn't it far, far cheaper and safer for Bishop's Lodge to move its leach field rather than stick us, all of us, with its risk